Welcome Katie Phillips, who I met a few years ago. She's completely adorable and has a really interesting life and work life. So she's going to share with us, and she's the founder of the School of Self-Love, which I think is really important, and we often forget to love ourselves enough. So Katie's going to impart lots of wisdom with us and share her wisdom with us this evening. And then you'll have the opportunity to ask Katie questions, and if we've got some time, I'm happy to answer questions on anything to do with menopause, postmenopause, perimenopause, or anything you care to throw at us. Okay, so Katie, I'd like to welcome you, and thanks so much for joining us. And just maybe first of all, to get a sense of how did you come to set up the School of Self-Love? What made you do that? What was your journey?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. Can I just say before I even answer that question, I'm feeling really quite emotional after that little meditation. That was absolutely gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really nice. So that's an important reminder, isn't it? That it is possible to feel better. Yeah. So, God, goodness. Okay. School of Self-Love was founded 10 years ago now. And it was really on the back of me going on my own personal kind of spiritual growth journey. I came to realize that I had been living my life very much as a victim for pretty much a solid decade after my mum's suicide. So mum took her life when I was 22, and it came as a shock, and it didn't come as a shock because she tried 5 years earlier. And then it came out that she tried in my first year of life. So it was kind of like a thing. It was there for her. She had clinical depression. Although we never knew it. You know, it wasn't until when I was 17, 18, and she had that first real attempt at suicide where she did nearly die. That it became very clear that mum was depressed and her anxiety was incredibly overwhelming. And she was and the tie into this is really interesting to your group and your amazing work. She was being treated for depression. She probably had she probably had postnatal depression after my birth. But back in the 70s, it just kind of wasn't really acknowledged or a thing. And it was very much swept under the carpet because God forbid anyone know, her children might have been taken away from her. So it was swept under the carpet. She was never helped or treated for that. And she just got on with life. But she had a challenging marriage with my dad. And I'm guessing that built up. But come when she was in her mid-40s, she was then being treated with tranquilizers, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. There was never ever any mention of perimenopause. And so for me, it wasn't until I just met my now husband, so I was 43, that I started to have my own perimenopause symptoms, and it really floored me, and it came out of the blue. And I never even heard of perimenopause before. I didn't know what it was. And it started to occur to me, well, you know, because we hear it said, don't we, that our experience of perimenopause can often be similar to our mums.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. And I never got to have that conversation with her. She didn't ever know, as far as I knew, that she was in perimenopause. And it was when she was 49 that she took her life. Right. So there's no denying the link. But I'm this isn't why I set up the School of Self-Love. It's a little bit of background because all I knew, like, I didn't even understand that what she was experiencing was natural and that it could be managed holistically and you could love yourself through it and support your way through it. I just witnessed a woman suffering. And for various reasons, I witnessed a woman suffering on and off for most of her life. And I learned, because we become, as I've come to understand and I now teach, you know, we are puppets to our conditioning and our programming. So I learned from mum how to be codependent. I learned from mum how to put myself last and not have my needs met. I learned to not even ask what I wanted or how I felt and what I needed. When she did finally die, I became a victim of to life. I genuinely thought that life was happening to me. It was against me. I was unlucky. And most other people that looked happy just happened to be lucky in life. I didn't know that we had any charge or control over what we thought or how we felt or what our experience in the world could be. I genuinely thought that it was just going to be hard for me. But ironically, you wouldn't have known that that's how I was feeling. And you wouldn't have known that I was also suffering anxiety and depression from my mid 20s to mid 30s, because I was a high achiever. I had a great corporate career, and, you know, I was youthful and pretty and had the boyfriends and was making decent money and traveling the world. I was super adventurous and climbing mountains and doing all the things that look really good on social media, but we didn't have social media then to post. If I had have, I'd have had pictures of me at the top of Kilimanjaro and flying business and first class, you know, like I was living that life. But behind the scenes, I felt incredibly lost. My personal relationships, so my intimate relationships with men, were full of a lot of drama. I didn't know how to meet my own needs, and I was always looking to him to fulfill them in some way. Equally, I was always looking to my career to fulfill me in some way. It was this constant external search for validation, for feeling worthy and good enough, and so on. And it wasn't until I woke up to the fact that I was existing as a victim to life. And when I started, you know, I had some therapy, then I moved into having transformational coaching. I did something called the Hoffman process, if anybody's heard of it. And all of that kick-started this massive awakening in me, and everything started to shift. And I became evangelical about sharing with women that, you know, you can change your life. And I never thought that I would be that person, because I was a corporate girl. I thought people like me, like the work I'm doing now in the world, and, you know, I've written a book and I speak on this and teach this, I would have been hugely cynical of somebody like me. I wouldn't have given somebody like me really the time of day.
I really understand that. I do. But I think I didn't know that about your mom, even though I knew you for several years. And actually, my mom attempted suicide 3 times. So I know what that journey feels like. Oh my
gosh. Okay.
My mom wasn't successful, though. She eventually died from ovarian cancer when she was 84. But I know what that awful emotional feeling is like. And I think that when you're in your corporate role, it's not a heart-driven thing. And somehow when you connect, I know this from my career, from helping women with PMS and their menopause all these years, that it's something you can't quite describe, because you see this amazing transformation in the people that you're helping. And that's really compelling, isn't it? And so that becomes something that you're really passionate about doing.
Yeah. I mean, I started by, to be honest, when I was really waking up to, I could create a life that really felt true and aligned for me. I started painting and drawing. My creativity came out. I started to create artwork with affirmations. So I'd create, look here, look, this is my first one, actually. By chance, I have it here. It's the first one I ever created.
Oh, wow.
The words
nice.
Back to front.
Yes.
So this is, I mean, it's typographic artwork, this one. But this is what I wanted to create for my life. It's all about home and how I wanted to feel and family. And I wasn't having this experience. I now have this. Like when I created this 12 years ago, this felt like an impossible, ridiculous pipe dream, to have this depth of love in a family, to be married with children and, you know, cheesy grins, silly jokes, laughter, comfort, dancing, heart. Like this is my family now. But I genuinely didn't think that, I'll put that down here or I'll have an accident. I genuinely didn't think that that was possible. So I started creating artworks to sort of motivate and inspire people. It became a product range. And then I started running workshops. I didn't realize I was on this path to becoming a coach and writing a book and so on. But it was the response I was getting from people. You know, people were telling me that the artwork was changing their life. And these little workshops that I was running was changing their life. And I thought, my goodness, I didn't realize I could help people like that. There I was, really, really helping women. So yeah, it became, it was a steady growth, and it became a career.
Excellent. So I think one of the things that I've discovered from my own journey and observing so many women is that we tend to be bottom of our own priority list. We don't tend to do that intentionally, but we get so busy, and we have kids, and we work, and we maybe look after the home and try and be a partner and everything to everybody. But it's not until we really fall on our nose at some point that we need to reach out for some help. So presumably can you give us some examples of maybe some of the people that have been through your courses, and just like a couple of vignettes of mini transformations that you can think of?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Who can I choose? Oh my God, they're all so unique and wonderful. So there was a woman, a British woman living in Hong Kong, in her, I guess she was in her mid-30s, late 30s, desperate to be in love, but didn't have time for that. She was working, she's a lawyer, working, I couldn't even compute the hours she was working a day, 14, 15, 16, sometimes hours a day, 7 days a week, had all sorts of physical ailments going on, utterly burnt out, but kept pushing herself. And she didn't know how to exist unless she was pushing herself. And I will never forget our first session together, where she said, I kept asking her, how do you feel? Because this is something that we have to get used to. This has to become a daily practice for us women, well, for everybody. How do I feel? What do I need? It needs to become something you ask yourself multiple times a day. That's how we support ourselves. How do I feel? What do I need? And I kept asking her, how do you feel? And she was like, that question doesn't compute. She was almost cross with me for asking the question. It's like, I don't know how I feel. I don't experience feelings. And she was sure that her experience of life was to not experience feeling. And we went on to prove that not to be true. She just didn't know how to access that. She didn't believe it was possible, like it was absolute fact in her mind that she couldn't take time off work. She dreamed of a sabbatical, but that was impossible. She dreamed of falling in love, but she didn't have time. That was impossible. She dreamed of being vibrant and healthy and alive. And she was in her late 30s. She should have been. That seemed impossible. Like just everything she desired seemed like fact to be impossible. Until it wasn't. We did a lot of deep inner child work. I'm a therapeutic coach now, so while I'm not a therapist, there's a little bit of a fine line with some of the work I'm doing with women. So reparenting her inner child became a huge piece. Healing her victim archetype, the victim voice that says it's not for you, it's for everybody else. I helped her with that. She went on to take a 3-month sabbatical. She met her man. She became incredibly fit and healthy. She fell pregnant. She got engaged. She eventually quit the job and is now, I don't know what she's doing right now, actually. I think she's finding a balance between having a baby and work life at the moment. But everything that she thought was impossible became true. But fundamentally what we did, in addition to the inner child healing, and there was some deep heart healing we did because she'd lost one of her parents, and she was still grieving that. There's a lot of clearing out of emotional baggage from years and years and years that had just built up. And she just learned how to contain it, which is why she said, I don't feel. She just knew how to contain. And it was a slow, gentle, like peeling back layer by layer of the grief and the pain and the sadness and the loss, until she could really start to not be scared of feeling her feelings. Because that was the big thing. Like when we bottle it for so long, it seems like this big, scary, hairy beast that we don't want to go anywhere near, because we don't think we'll survive those feelings. No,
I really, really get that. And I think we get so absorbed in everything that we're doing. And also a bit about maybe you don't deserve more, You know, you're just on almost like on a hamster on a treadmill.
Yeah. And this is part of, you know, why I was called to create something called the School of Self-Love, because it is about giving yourself permission to get to know yourself and to love yourself to the degree that you then have permission to, what did you say again? What am I responding? This is my brain fog kicking in right now. What did you just say? About permission to
just, well, being bottom of your own priority list, and permission to just care about yourself, or or being deserving.
And this is, but exactly, that's exactly it, because we have been conditioned to believe we have to earn a break, or earn a rest, or earn the you know, permission to be kind to ourselves, to take it easy, to take a day off. We haven't been conditioned to know that it's our birthright. It's as important as all of the achieving and the list ticking, and you know, so self-love invites you to value what appears to be doing nothing. It's the feminine energy within us that is looking to be expressed, that we don't value. You know, we think the feminine is all about surrender, taking a break, being rather than doing, feeling rather than thinking. But when we're in the feminine practices, it looks like we're doing nothing. We can't point at it as a tangible thing and go, look what I've achieved, look what I did today, because all you did was sleep or rest or be or walk in nature or meditate or have a bath. It looks like you're doing nothing, but actually the feminine is incredibly active. We just haven't learned to value that action, because being is an action, right? Surrendering is an action.
And I think also it's about balance as well, isn't it? Getting the balance in your life right. Because that reminds me of another little story when, as most of you know, I lost my youngest daughter, and I ran a campaign in her memory. And after I'd been doing that for about 5 years, I was really burned out. I was going on TV, you know, sometimes 7 times a day, doing interviews, everyone asking, what does it feel like to lose your daughter? And my cortisol, my stress hormone, just went sky high. And I was lucky, I found an amazing doctor, and we pulled out all the medical research on how do you bring down cortisol naturally. And he worked with me, and I did it in 4 months. But when I went back after the first month, and actually I'd never taken time off work before. So I took myself off to Florida to see my lovely man, parked myself on the beach and made a list of all the things that made my heart sing. And when I went back to him with my list, he said, well, how did you get on, Maryon? And I said, well, I've been working really hard. And he said, listen to yourself. He said, you're supposed to be doing nothing and relaxing. Yeah. You're working at it. So, you know, subconsciously, and I had to stand back and think to myself, yeah, I really was working at it. Yeah. And so I did better the next month. But you have to learn it, don't you?
Yeah, you really do. You really do have to learn it. And, you know, I had to take quite a bit of time off last week because my hormones really took over. And just giving, I mean, my goodness, for as long as I've been doing it, I teach it. I mean, we teach what we need to learn, right? I never learned to value rest. That was just, you don't rest, you keep going. I have to prove my worth. You know, I have to earn love. We think we have to work really hard to get love, earn love, to feel significant and worthy in the world. I took some time off last week, and it was every moment of the time that I took to rest, I was having conversations with myself, reminding myself, it's okay, Katie. It's okay to stop. People will get the better of you if you do. No one's going to get anything of value of you if you show up right now. And within the doing nothing, we're actually creating so much. I mean, honestly, I woke up Monday morning this week like a brand new woman out of the blue. Yeah. And I had ideas and I felt creative, and it was because I was almost incubating something to be born and come to life this week. I didn't know it last week.
No. And I think also that during COVID times, lots of people have got elevated cortisol, the stress hormone,
Mm.
and that can mimic menopause symptoms. It can give you brain fog. It can make you tired and achy and anxious and all of those things. And so I think just stopping and doing the things you did probably brought your cortisol down, apart from anything else. But let's move. I want to ask you something else, because I happen to know that you got married on a beach and it was very romantic, and you'd had a not such good experience first time round, and then you visioned your amazing life that you have now. So just tell us a little bit about that, because I think that will be interesting for everybody.
Oh, I love talking about this story. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I was sharing before, wasn't I, that I had a pattern of putting myself in relationships that were full of drama. And I had a pattern of being in a relationship where I got to be codependent, where it was all about them and not me, but we were both codependent, actually, as it turned out. And it was exhausting. And I was living on edge all the time. I never felt completely comfortable or completely able to be, fully myself. I never was able to speak my truth or ask for what I needed. The relationship with my son's father, we were married. We never actually got married, actually. We were married. We were due to be married in 3 months. And of course, because I was addicted to drama, I left 3 months before our wedding. So you can imagine the drama and the fireworks that came of that. It was the hardest decision of my life. It was the best decision of my life. My son was just 2 at that point. And I went straight into another relationship, of course, because I was a woman that didn't know herself, and I didn't know how to love or value myself unless it was reflected back to me by a man. And that was a horrendous experience of a relationship for about 9 months. And after that, I was single for 8 years. And it was in that time that I did a lot of healing. And towards the end of that period, for a couple of years at the end of that period, I became very, very intentional that I was ready to share my life with somebody else. I was ready to dare to trust a man again. And I did a lot of work to heal my relationship to the masculine. So it actually ties in with what we were just speaking about, because we have a masculine energy inside of us as well as the masculine externally. So the man I was calling in is the masculine, but I also had a relationship with my own inner masculine, and I didn't trust either. My inner masculine was incredibly disempowered and toxic, because it was the part of me that had the whip out and kept telling me, Katie, keep going, work harder, try harder, show up, don't stop, make more money. It was that part of me. I didn't trust that part of me because it hurt me and it exhausted me and it had me on the floor with anxiety. And I didn't trust men. And I had conditioning with, growing up as a little girl with my dad leaving. And so I'd learned not to trust men. So I had a huge journey around healing my relationship to the masculine. And I had to do that because I was looking for next level love. I was ready to call in my soulmate. I was ready to dare to have a healed and healthy relationship. I was ready to believe that was even possible. I didn't know that was possible for me. And so I did this work and chose to become the vibrational match for what I was calling in. So when I say vibrational match, what I mean is if I desire him to be emotionally available, I had to learn to be emotionally available to myself. If I desired really open, honest communication and intimacy, I had to have that depth of intimacy and honesty with myself. So it was a real journey. And it became, I came to realize, because I was like, where is he? How am I going to find him? And I started traveling the world, trying to find him, going to events where I figured that he would be. I was going to events with all these really cool, good looking, wealthy, conscious, spiritually awake men. Met some great guys, but didn't meet my guy. But I was, again, my masculine energy was saying, Katie, you have to figure it out. This is your new job now. Find your man. Go out there and find him. Go on all the apps. Go on all the sites. I even because I had a podcast at the time, I started interviewing dating experts so that I could get all the tips and tools on how to call in my guy. So I was like doing all the things. And I had all the other things. I had the vision boards. I bought brand new bedside tables, left one empty, put a few man's grooming products in the drawers, had a couple of hangers in the cupboard for him. Like, I was creating space. I was manifesting. I was like a woman on fire manifesting him, but it still wasn't happening. And it really came down to me trusting that I could stop trying and I could focus on me. I could focus on just feeling good. And my focus became on, because I knew that when I met him, I would feel at home. And to me, feeling at home meant safe, cozy, secure, like all those yummy feelings that we have when we're nesting at home. So my work was energetic work to create that feeling, have that experience in my day-to-day life. And I got to this place of just loving myself and me and my life and just feeling good every day, to such a degree that he literally just came in out of the blue. And he was 15-minute drive up the road. Like, he wasn't at some glamorous event and like on the other side of the world. And yeah, we met, and it was an instant yes. And we got married 2 years later in Bali, which was very beautiful, because it was we were engaged on Lombok. We're on a big family and friend holiday, engaged in Lombok. And as we were all kind of there, my friend said, why don't you get married kind of now? So we got married 5 days later, and my friends and my sister organized the whole thing. I didn't lift a finger, and it was my absolute it was literally the dream wedding that I'd written in my journal once upon a time. And I manifested it without doing anything, because that's the power of the feminine. I moved into receiving mode and I could receive it. I moved into receiving mode to receive him. And this is the work I'm still practicing, because the conditioning of having to work hard is powerful. So it's a daily choice to love myself enough to overcome the conditioning, to step into receiving mode, and to trust that I'm worthy of what I desire just as I am, that I don't have to work to prove my worth. And life feels easier as a result.
Yeah, and I think that I love that story, because it just shows that no matter what you've been through, you can start again. And if you get it right, if you just learn to love yourself, to meet your needs, get yourself in good nutritional shape, just all the things that you need at midlife to make you feel whole, turbocharged. You don't have to be an invisible woman who goes downhill and that's the end of life as you knew it. This could be a whole new beginning if you learn to meet your needs. Yeah. So can you maybe give us a few tips, or maybe take us through a typical day, an ideal day of how you can incorporate this into your regime? Because I think there's a lot of interest in this, and people will want to know what you would recommend to make them feel better. Like, are there instant things that they can do, and then longer term things? What would you say?
So I think when it comes to self-love, first of all, it's like a choice every day. You have to choose it. You have to choose to love yourself and choose practices that support you on a daily basis, and make that your practice. And the word practice is important there, because we don't get it right first off, and build upon it. So it's not about doing all the things all at once, because again, it's like, shit, that's overwhelming. It's like, you're just giving me another long list of things to do. I'm not on top of it as it is. And now I have to journal for 20 minutes. I have to meditate. I have to go for walks in nature. I've got to have nice, long, hot, salty baths. I better do some inner child work. Let me go hire a therapist. It's a lot, right? We don't have to do it all at once. But it is in the first instance, it's a choice that I'm going to choose to love myself first and foremost, no matter what. And a prayer that always supports me if I'm taking on anything new, or I don't know how to handle something or approach something, would be, and in this example, it would go something like, even though I don't know how to love myself, I'm willing to be shown. because just that willingness energetically just opens you up to receiving mode. Because right there, you're like, okay, I'm ready to be shown. I'm in receiving mode. I'm choosing not to figure it out. And I'm going to trust that a loving energy that's greater than me is going to show me my path. And I will give some tips in a second, but they're not prescriptive, because we have to find our own way. Like my own daily practice, it changes every day. My daily, because I get bored. So like I change it up. I actually ask myself, how do I feel? What do I need every single day? Throughout the day, I start the day with that, and I ask myself throughout the day. So I've got, I've got bits of paper everywhere with like lists and lists, and I literally look at it and I think, what do I feel like doing next? Not what are their deadline or what do they want of me? It's like, well, how do I feel and what do I need? How am I going to approach that in a way that feels really good for me? When I began this work, I didn't know where to begin. I was on the floor with anxiety. And I didn't even know that life was guiding me. I can look back now with all that I've learned, and I can see that life, I surrendered because I didn't have a choice. And life just showed me the way. It was a meditation, then it was a therapist, and then it was some lines in a song. It was like bit by bit, I slowly began to find my way and learning to love myself. I think, first of all, asking yourself, how do I feel? What do I need? Is just a key practice. Stay open to being shown what your next piece is. So you might, when you say that prayer, I don't know how to love myself, but I'm willing to be shown. Really keep your eyes open and notice what comes your way. Someone will probably send you a link to their favorite latest meditation or a book that you really must read. So pay attention to those pieces so that you can start to piece together your own self-love plan. I think most women who are desiring to begin a self-love practice, I could probably put money on the fact they're doing that because they have a sense they don't know who they are. And a really, really good way to begin a relationship with yourself, to get to know yourself, is to buy yourself a journal and just start writing. Make that, if you could write every day and just share, like dump down your thoughts and feelings on a daily basis, that alone, if you do nothing else, can be an absolute game changer. My favorite journaling practice, just a quick, like step by step, I would invite you to start with a brain dump. So just spend a few minutes, or as long as you've got, just getting everything that's in your head down onto paper, because that noise in your head is making you feel crazy and it's absolutely exhausting you. And when we're living up in here, we're not living down in our body and in our heart. So we're not tapped into our spiritual truth. We're not feeling our feelings. We're not operating in an aligned way. We're coming from like ego minds, and we're not going to make good decisions coming from here. It's usually kind of stressy decisions, right? So massive brain dump. And even if it doesn't make sense, no one else is going to read it. Even if it's just a bunch of swear words and scribbling, get it out of your head. And then you'll notice that once you've really written it all down, it could be to-do lists, it could be an angry letter to somebody, it could be you're trying to figure something out, a bunch of feelings you've been having, just dump it all out. You'll know when you're done, you'll feel kind of spent. And then suddenly your energy will shift and you can start to move down into your heart. And you'll be able to come into your heart by asking yourself 3 questions. So ask yourself to, write down 3 things that you're proud of yourself for, 3 things that you value about yourself, and 3 things, what was the other thing I usually say? 3 things you're proud of yourself for, 3 things you value about yourself.
You'll think of it in a minute. While you're thinking of that,
it'll come to me.
I've got another question for you while you're thinking of that third thing. If you had to say what percentage, if 100% was you're home and dry, you love yourself, the people that you meet, what percentage would you say when you meet them they have achieved in terms of self-love?
when a client comes
Yeah,
to
when
me?
you first, yes. So in other words, if you were to kind of look in the high street and look at all the people walking along, just if you could say off the top of your head from your experience, would you say they were 50%, 20%, how far off the mark are we?
People that come to me have a sense they do not know and love themselves. They do not. A lot of them would say, I don't even like myself.
Right. Wow, that's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's different levels with the way I'm working with people. So yeah, it depends why they're attracted to me and my work. So if you're called to work with me because you want to call in your soulmate, which is a big body of work I'm doing, there's probably an element of self-love there to even reach out to me, to love yourself enough to like reach out to the coach and get the help. And it's pretty high level work. So there's an element of, they've probably done some work. They probably had some therapy. They probably had some coaching. And so there's probably, I don't know, 50, I don't know if there's a 1 to 100, maybe they're at 50%.
Right.
To actually delve into the coaching. People that buy the book, people that buy this, I would say are
show us your book. Let's see the
5 or 10%.
Okay, The Self-Love Affair. Brilliant. And where can you get that?
Oh, that's on Amazon.
Excellent.
Yeah, The Self-Love Affair, A Woman's Guide to a Daring and Mighty Life. But this is a workbook in itself. So
right.
this is full of tips and tools to help you to.
So that's a good place for people to start. Would you say that's a good first step?
It's an excellent first step. Yeah, it's an
Brilliant.
excellent first step.
That's a great resource. I didn't know you had that book. How long has it been out?
Oh, 2015, I think this came out.
Wow. Okay, I missed that one.
Yeah.
That's really good. Fantastic.
Yeah, but with the journaling, what am I proud of myself for? What do I value about myself? And there's still the third one I can't come up with. That's the two I've already said, isn't it? Proud of myself, value about myself. I can't remember. And then once you've written those, you can tune into your spiritual self and ask yourself a question, because your nervous system will have calmed down. So you've gone from the chaos in the head, you've brain dumped it, you'll feel different already. You're moving into, the third thing is gratitudes. 3 things I'm grateful for. There you go. We knew it would come. So 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm proud of myself for, and 3 things I value about myself. Now you're in your heart, you're in gratitude. You've moved into a very expansive, abundant energy. You're not in this sort of scarcity energy in your head. And from that place, you can have a little chat with your spiritual self, and you can ask yourself a question. So this is where you can just free write and just write what comes and listen to your heart. Maybe ask a question and hear your own inner wisdom and guidance come through. But just enjoy the peace of writing and getting to know the real you, not this stuff. That's not who you are. It's just beliefs and stuff and to-do lists and anger that's never been expressed.
And it's also very healing, isn't it? There's a lot of research to show that journaling, I encountered an art therapist who was a doctor of art therapy. At the time I needed her in my life when I was really suffering physically, and I learned to do self-healing and it was inner child and writing with a non-dominant hand and all, and there are amazing stories about how you can heal all sorts of things, emotions as well as physical conditions. So it's just a whole learning process, isn't it? But it's lovely that we can.
Absolutely. I was working with a woman once who was, she must have been in her late 60s. And we did some really profound inner child work together. And I didn't know that she also wanted to be in a relationship. And she was believing it wasn't possible for her now that she's in her late 60s. And I didn't know that one of her biggest blocks to calling in love was she'd had an operation in her vagina. And it had built up on the back of the operation, there was scar tissue. And she couldn't have sex without it being horribly painful. And that stopped her being in relationships for a long time. And we did this really profound inner child work. 2 weeks later, the pain disappeared. And she met a guy, well, she'd sort of been trying to see a guy, but they hadn't been able to be intimate. And they were intimate for the first time. And she had zero pain. And she never had pain again. And she's still with, this years later now, she's still with him. But that was through inner child work, through healing something that went on for her when she was 5 years old. She's in her 60s and she'd been carrying it all that time. And it was stopping her from having the life experience she wanted to have, and she bloody well deserved to have, you know? So profound healing can happen when we do that work.
Let's take a pause for a minute, because what I'd like to do now is let's see if anyone has any questions. So you can either put them in the chat if you don't want to ask it personally. You're welcome to put your screens on so you can come and join us in the room, or not. And if anyone wants to ask a question out loud, they can do that too. So the chat box is on the right-hand side of my screen. And anyone got anything that they'd like to ask Katie about what we've talked about so far, or any aspect of loving yourself more, self-care?
Oh, you're welcome. Zoe's feeling hopeful. That's lovely. Hope, my God, such an important thing, isn't it?
Exactly. I think, yeah, when I've been doing my interviews for my new book in the US, when they asked me at the end, you know, what's the one thing you'd like to tell everybody? And I said, well, if all I've given them is hope that they can actually do a U-turn and feel better, then that's a good job done, isn't it, really? It's just opening people's eyes to the fact that there are possibilities, I think.
Absolutely.
Katie, somebody's asking, can you explain a bit more about your inner child work?
Oh my goodness, yes. I'll try and keep it short. It's quite a body of work. I actually I have a membership, and I hosted a masterclass on this last week. It was 2 hours. So essentially, often there is a part of you that's very young that is trying desperately to control aspects of your adult life because it hasn't had the attention paid to it that it should have had when whatever happened to that little girl back then. So essentially, what we don't own owns us. Yeah. So what we haven't healed, what we haven't owned in our life will have some grip and control on us as adults. Often that is a little 5-year-old girl. I call her the original victim because something went on for her, something happened to her, and nobody acknowledged that something went on for her, and she didn't receive the love, care, understanding, attention that she needed at the time. And that part of her is literally in charge of her adult life. It's quite a conversation. I'm not sure how to bring it into a nutshell in a few minutes. But really what inner child work is doing is inviting us as adults, because as an adult woman, you're very resourceful, you're very capable, you've got this far, so you can clearly survive life, you know how to figure things out, you're intelligent. If you don't know the answer, you'll Google it. Like you're a very capable woman. So that capable adult woman is invited to reparent the little girl, and is invited to take her hand and, as a daily practice, ask her how she feels and what she needs. So if, like for me, if I'm going to go on stage to speak at an event, I will always be nervous. Doesn't matter how many times I do it, I still get nervous. And then I have to have a chat with my little 5. Look, I've got my little, she's actually 7. This is my little girl here. So I work with her on a daily basis. So whenever I'm feeling anxious or nervous, I have a chat with her. I'm like, what are you upset about? What are you nervous about? And she'll tell me. And we'll just have a conversation backwards and forwards until she realizes, oh, she doesn't have to do it. Adult Katie's going to handle it. Adult Katie knows how to speak on stage. 5-year-old Katie hasn't got a clue. 5-year-old Katie's scared. She needs a cuddle. She needs a hug. She needs to be told that she's good enough, that she's more than enough, that I'll never leave her, that I'll always be there for her, that I've got her back. And I begin this reparenting relationship with her. And essentially what happens is as I reparent her, she heals. As she heals, she kind of loosens her grip on my life. So the anxiety releases, the peace comes, I feel more joyful, I become more playful, more creative, because I've not got this anxious little girl gripping on for dear life. And as she heals, essentially there's an integration. So I'm learning to relate to myself and build trust with myself through communicating with her, because she's not actually separate to me. But until I sort of bring her into the fold on a daily basis, she is separate to me. And we feel anxiety when we have that disconnect inside of us. So I bring her in every day, have a chat, give her love, ask her what she needs. And slowly as she heals, it just becomes a habit of relationship with myself, where I just learn to take care of me.
I think also we could have a whole conversation about it, but just very simply, that it's all also can be just about being sensible all your life and being on this production line where you're expected to do so many things and be grown up, and you never let your little inner child come out to play. And I know in my life that my inner child got really hacked off with me for not letting her out to play for 17 years when I was running the advisory service, and it made me sick.
Yes.
And so when I realized I had to nurture her and let her out and feel like a child again in a playful way, it has such a profound effect.
So true. Yeah, so true. It's an amazing piece of work. It really is. Yeah.
We will have another conversation, Julie.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of people agreeing with you and saying, Elvira's saying, I need to talk to my inner child. This makes so much sense. Thank you. I like Lynn saying, I like the idea of using adult me and not my inner child. And she's saying, talking to your inner child every day is a light bulb moment for me. Thank you for sharing this. There was another question further up about the best, sorry, it's all going in the middle.
I have to say, it did literally, that one thing did literally change my whole life. And
inner child work.
Yeah,
I think me too. So. It was the game changer for me. There's been many game changers, but that's a profound one.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone.
And it's fun, isn't it? As well, it's enjoyable. It's not hard work.
Yeah, actually, it really is. It's beautiful, and you create a relationship with yourself that's it's so private and so. It's so intimate and beautiful and perfect in its own right. No one can touch it. No one can take that from you. It's so, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's very, very special work.
Yeah, and not too hard to learn. I think I did a course which was a week, and I did some reading and so on, and it just, and then over time you learn more as you go along, but it's not too difficult. So I think someone was asking about how do you bring cortisol down, and I think that was Sarah, to lower cortisol. So have you got some suggestions for that? I've got tons because I had high cortisol.
Go on, you do. Yeah, no, you answer that question.
Well, mine, what I discovered from this whole process, because my cortisol was so high, it was off the chart, and it felt like my brain had been rubbed out. I couldn't remember anything. I was just probably sleeping for 23 hours a day. I was like one step away from being dead. And if I had to sum it up, I'd say that you have to do the things that make your heart sing, and say no to the things that make your heart sink. And the things that make your heart sing are fun. So again, letting your inner child out to play, and doing anything from dancing to your favorite music to just watching a funny movie, hanging out with your friends, doing some yoga, have a massage, and obviously taking things like adaptogenic herbs, which can bring your cortisol level down. Those are the main things, just everything luscious that you can do for yourself, which you've thought about before and said, no, I can't do that, I'm too busy. So, and it takes time to bring a high cortisol level down, but you can bring it right down so that you don't have any symptoms and you don't feel anxious, you don't feel tired, your brain comes back and you just get on with your life. But then you have to go forward with your practice, as you call it. And certainly in my life, I have to stop myself every now and then because the scale pan swings back the other way, and I'm doing far too much work again, too intense, not enough play, and you have to then reboot to get the balance right again. And remember to, when you need to, go back and do the journaling. You know, when you need to go and do something amazing for yourself, take a bit of time off, you know, maybe a few hours or an afternoon, go and look at nature or do something. I remember one afternoon something bad happened and I was hoping something was good was going to happen, but it didn't happen. And I was sitting at my computer thinking, I feel so bad, I feel so bad. And then I thought, no, I'm going to go inside, I'm going to get my knitting out, and I'm going to put an old rom-com on that I haven't watched for years. Yeah. And I'm just going to enjoy it. By the time my husband came home from work, I was okay again. I was just, you know, it was all in perspective. And so it's just, it's, as you say, parenting yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, parenting is, it's a really nice way of putting it, and bringing, you know, if we're to distill everything down that we're talking about, it is like, how could we parent ourselves? How could we be the unconditionally loving, totally patient, incredibly allowing parent to ourselves, rather than this horrible bitch with a with a whip telling me to go harder and faster and do better. You know, like, why do we choose that voice? We do have a choice.
Doesn't it amaze you? Because it amazes me that we don't learn. We're, as women, we're born with millions of eggs. We've got all sorts of hormonal events that are going to happen to us. We don't have a roadmap. We learn about history and science and geography, but we don't learn about how to meet our needs or how to deal with this human condition. How to have relationships, or all these things that we're going to have in our life, but no one teaches us. And so essentially what we provide for the nutrition side of it, you know, and lifestyle, and help people get themselves back into balance. And then they can go on to something like your courses and your school to enhance themselves and maybe even reinvent themselves.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think midlife, I think when we're in perimenopause, and this has become so clear to me now that I am in perimenopause, I'm about to turn 47. It's, my body is literally saying to me, Katie, it's time. It's time to put yourself first. You know, it's physically unsustainable to work at that pace. You have to learn to take a step back. I mean, literally my body, I mean, I was doing it anyway, but my God, has my hormonal journey upped the ante. It's like, wow, Katie, you thought you were teaching what you needed to learn. Now you're really teaching what you need to learn, because my body is saying you have to. You don't have a choice. But also it's this most amazing opportunity to take on all of the wisdom and the life experiences of all of those years and now put them to good use.
And that's the key thing. And I think that that's our mission, really, because if women are curled up in a ball and they can't function for whatever reason, then that wisdom is just lost. Yeah. And so it's so important that we breathe air back into it, isn't it? So that the person can bring their gifts and do all the things that they can, put their wisdom to good use. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely. So I think we're running out of time. So if anyone has got any more burning questions.
Just to say, someone said, was I referring to the Wim Hof method? Peter, I wasn't. It was, I did something called the Hoffman process. The Hoffman process. That Wim Hof I was actually doing all of his breathing techniques this time last year. I had his app. He's brilliant. Love Wim Hof, but very different.
Okay.
Just to answer that question.
Yeah, we're so grateful to you for joining us and giving us your wisdom tonight. In exchange, I'm going to fix your hormones so that you make every day a good day. So that's what's the next thing that you've managed to call in.
I love you.
So that's good. And then you'll have to come back and talk to us again, and we'll talk maybe next time about visioning an inner child, that kind of thing. So
my gosh, there's so many different things we could speak to, and I've always loved doing it. So anytime you want me, I'll come back, of course. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, and we will meet again this time next week. Do you know what we're talking about next week, Julie?
The honest answer is no.
Right. Well, we'll think
I have got a list of topics. if anybody, as I'm always asking, if anybody's got anything we want us to talk about, do talk about it. Otherwise, I've got a couple of ideas, but I'll get those out in the newsletter this weekend. Okay,
we're getting near to Easter, so should we do cravings at some point?
I had 2 on my list. One was cravings and one was weight loss. So I wasn't, which were 2 of the things we had on our list that we were going to do before Easter. So
excellent. Yes, and keep your ideas coming. If there are any things you'd like to hear about, then let us know. And we will see you. If you enjoyed tonight, then tell your friends and get them to come and join the Midlife Refuel Club, because we are on a mission to help women to feel the best version of themselves. And thank you again, Katie. And we will be speaking very soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good night, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are.
Lots of love.